Question 1.3. Zondo manufacturers. Zondo manufactures plastic stationery bags for matriculants. The information below is from the records for the financial year ended 30 June. 1.3.1. Calculate the amounts denoted by A and B in the information. So in the information, let's see what we have there. We have 30 June 2016, this financial year, as well as 2015, the previous one. We have total costs for this financial year. We have unit costs as well for this financial year versus unit costs for the previous financial year. So we also have number of units produced and sold, the selling price per unit, and break-even number of units for both 2016 and 2015. Okay, so first of all, administration costs is part of our fixed costs together with the factory overheads. So fixed costs again means as the level of production increase, the fixed costs will actually stay the same, the total fixed costs. So we have the unit costs. So we know total costs is the number of units that we produced and sold, the 12,480, times the unit costs. So it costs 7 Rand to produce, or 7 Rand of administration cost to produce and sell 1 unit, but we don't have 1, we have 12,480. So it's 12,480 times 7. So we have 12,480 times 7 Rand. So we have 12,480 times 7, which results in 87,360 Rand. So we covered A. Number B. Now we don't know the unit costs, but we do know the direct material, the total costs. So we can divide the total cost by the number of units to get the costs per unit. So we have to divide the total cost of 374,400 by the number of units of 12,480 to get the cost per unit. So total costs divided by the number of units produced and sold gives us a unit cost of 30 Rand. So for 1.3.2 we have to verify the break-even number of units for the financial year ended 30 June 2016 by showing a calculation. So it's a verification, as they already indicated that for the June 2016 year the break-even units were 12,000 Rand. So now we need to know how to calculate break-even. So break-even is the fixed costs divided by the contribution, which is the selling price per unit, minus the variable costs per unit. Or this bottom part we also refer to as the contribution. So now it's a matter of substituting. So fixed cost, we know, consists out of the 224,640, 224,640, plus what we calculated in A, the administration cost is also a fixed cost of 87,360. And that we need to divide by the contribution, which is the selling price per unit, which is 92 Rand 50, minus the variable cost per unit. So we have all our unit variable costs, 28 plus the 30 that we calculated plus the 850. So it's 28 plus the 30 we calculated plus the 8 Rand 50. So here we calculated the 30 Rand. So now it's a matter of using the calculator and see if we get to 12,000. So we have 224,640. We have to add the 87,360. So that is 312,000. And we have to divide by, okay, let me first add up all these. So we have 28 plus 30 plus 8,5, so 6650. We have to subtract from that, or we subtract from 9250 that, and that's 101 Rand. Whoa, no, something doesn't make sense. It must become less, not more. Let's recalculate. So we have in fact 92,50 minus, in brackets, 28 plus 30 plus 8,5, close brackets, 26. That makes more sense. So let's see. So we have 312,000 divided by 26 will result in that magic number of 12,000. So we verified that the break-even point is in fact 12,000 units. So next we now have to comment on the break-even point and the level of production for both years. Quote relevant figures in your comment. Okay, so let's see. In 2015, our break-even units were 11,800. We also in fact produced and sold 11,800 units. So break-even point equals number of units sold. So we did not make a profit, neither did we make a loss. Let's see what happened in 2016. We had to produce 12,000 units just to break even, but we in fact produced 480 units more, 12,480 units. So in 2016 we will therefore make a profit, whereas in 2015 we neither make a profit nor a loss. So we can also see what happened is our number of units that we produce and sold increase from 11,800 to 12,480. So it's 680 units more that we produce. Our break-even number just increased by 200. So our sales and production increased by much more than the number of break-even units. And that's another angle to see that would be beneficial to our business and that we in fact will make a profit. So for this, I'm not going to write all of this down. I will just show you what we would have written from the solution point of view. It is basically what we already mentioned. So we are comparing break-even point to level of production. The business produced 12,480 units, of which is 480 units more than the break-even production. So we were making low profit. If we would have give advice, we also need to say we can increase the productivity to increase our profit. Or we could say, compare the production between the year. The business produced 680 units more than last year, which we also mentioned. Or break-even point increase from 11,800 to 12,000 units. The business did not make a profit last year, it broke even, but managed to increase the production level this year. Okay, so next we need to provide a valid reason for the change in the direct material costs per unit. Okay, so direct material costs per unit. Okay, remember we calculated that this is 30 Rand. So it went up from 25 Rand to 30 Rand, which is quite drastically. So it's a difference of 5 Rand. It was 25, so let's take the difference, divide by what it was, and multiply by 100 to get the percentage. So that's 20%. We know currently, like in South Africa, inflation is about 5-6%, so 20% is excessive. So now the question is, what would result in a change in the direct material cost per unit? Well, there might be various aspects like a wastage of material, or maybe fuel costs rise, which would increase the transport costs, or maybe if we are importing materials, it might be the change in the exchange rate. So there are various reasons. I'm just going to the model solution to show some of these. Any one of them would be sufficient. So we already calculated the 20% increase, which we know is more than inflation. We already indicated additional transport costs. Okay, another reason could be a shortage of stock from suppliers that will push the price up if something is scarce. According to the law of supply and demand, an economic law, the basic economics law, prices will go up when things are scarce. We also already included wastage in the factory. Yeah, maybe that it goes hand in hand with poorly trained workers. Poorly trained workers will tend to waste in the factory. Okay, there also could have been theft of stock. Okay, and then finally we have to give one suggestion that the business can use to improve production and profitability. So again, I'm just going to quickly move on to the solutions. It want to actually address what we said to an extent in 1.3.4, because we said that the increase is 20%, that is bigger than inflation, where now we say, okay, well, we have to reduce the costs as there was a 20% increase in direct materials. And then we also, remember we said there's a wastage in the factory, so to address that we can say control the use of the raw material, train workers to be more efficient and waste less. Okay, it could also be that we need to look for cheaper suppliers or local instead of international to reduce our transport costs. Then we could also, how do we increase profitability? Well, if we can increase our sales and production, so we can motivate workers to produce more. We only produce 680 more than the last year and 480 more than break even point. If we go back to our information, then if we take 680, that's what we produce more, divided by what we produce in 2015, the regional, and multiply by 100 over 1. Let's see what we get. 5.7%. Okay, so I'm not sure. I don't get that 9%. I get 5.7. So, but anyway, it's not a big increase. How else can we improve profitability? Well, we can increase our sales. How do we do that? Spend more on advertising to improve sales. So there was a decrease in selling and distribution costs from R8.90 in the previous year to R8.50 per unit this year. So that's an obvious one. We spend less on advertising, so that could have an effect. Then we can also look at the price of the desks. We only have 11% increase in price of desks, so we could use a bigger markup. So if we go and look at the price of our desks, let's see, 92.50. So the difference between 92.50 and 83 is R9.50. Let's divide that by the original price of 83 and multiply by 100. Yes, so it's 11.4% increase in sales. So yeah, that should give you an idea of an approach that we can take to a question like this. But again, only one of these reasons you need. We have stated multiple ones.